Okay, welcome to class, everyone. Today we will be talking about the TOEFL speaking test again. And I'm going to focus mostly on the templates, though I will give you some brief background information about each question on the speaking portion of the TOEFL. And then you'll have the opportunity to practice each question today as well. But I want to make sure that you have the templates ready for each of the 4 questions and that you feel really comfortable using these templates when you are practicing on your own. Of course, practice is what is going to make you good at this test, right? So it's great that you're here in class to learn and to do some practice with me. But really, it's the practice that you will do on your own that's going to make you really good at the speaking part of the TOEFL. And just as a reminder, the TOEFL classes that we have here on GregMat will also be talking about the listening portion of the test. And then I'm also preparing to talk about reading and writing. So you'll get all 4 sections of the TOEFL within classes here on GregMat. So hopefully next week I will be discussing the listening section of the TOEFL. So today again is a speaking class, and we're going to focus on the templates. I have a PowerPoint ready, and I want you to take screenshots of the templates that I show you and use them when you're practicing. So let's jump in here. So if you're new, I'm not sure who has been to these classes before or how familiar you are with the TOEFL. You probably already know some of this information, but in case you're new to the TOEFL or you're just now starting to prepare, there are 4 types of questions on the speaking section. So question 1, that's where we'll start today. It's called the independent speaking task or the personal choice question. So this is the only one where you draw entirely on your own ideas, opinions, and experiences. So this is the one where it's asking you for your opinion, and you have to give an opinion one way or the other, and then speak on that for 45 seconds. Questions 2, 3, and 4, those are the ones that are probably more challenging. They require you to integrate all of your English language skills, so listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And these are the ones where you are either summarizing something that you read or listen to, and then just repeating back what you hear. So you're not having to give your own opinion. It's asking you to just tell us the opinions of the people that you listened to or that you read about. One thing to note is you might have accents that you might be listening to native speakers from North America, the UK, New Zealand, or Australia. So you need to be somewhat familiar with each of those types of English accents. And in case you're wondering, I'm from the United States, so I have a North American accent. So question 1, just briefly, here are the 3 types of questions you might get. You'll see agree or disagree, or preference, or situation. You'll see some of these in the actual question themselves. So no matter what type of question you get, you'll answer it in the same way. You'll use the same template. So you'll be given a statement and asked if you agree or disagree with it. That's the most common question that you'll get. Or you could be given 2 options and asked which one you prefer. That's the second most common. And then the least common is you'll be given a situation and asked if you agree or think it's a good idea. But again, any type of question you get, you'll answer it in the same way. So we're just going to go quickly. It's just some basic tips here. You only get 15 seconds to organize your thoughts. So take some brief notes on what you want to say. You don't have to memorize a response like a written essay. You don't need an intro, a middle, a conclusion, because this is a speaking question, and the raters want to hear you speaking, not reading. So make sure that when you give your response and you follow the template, you're doing this in the most natural, conversational way possible. And that's what you'll want to do for every question. Even though you'll be looking at notes and having those notes guide you as you speak, you're going to want to be as natural as possible. So that's where practice comes in. So if today's your first day trying out these questions, you probably won't sound as natural, conversational. It'll sound more like you're reading. So work on that, work with the same questions on your own and see if you can pretend like you're having a conversation with a friend. That's the type of cadence and intonation and rhythm that the raters are looking for. Here's what my notes looked like. So you'll see I use some symbols, and I'll show you some examples of notes as we go. I won't spend a ton of time here because I want to really focus on the templates. But just be ready to take notes. Use abbreviations when possible. You're going to use symbols to help you out. And in future slides, I'll kind of define what these symbols mean. But this one on the left is an example of the notes that I took when I could only come up with one reason. Now, this will make more sense when you see the template for question number 1. This side on the right is when I came up with 2 reasons. So if you've studied question 1 before or the TOEFL, you maybe have come across teachers or the internet somewhere that says you need to have 2 reasons. That's not true. You can have just one reason to support your opinion on question 1, but you'll want to elaborate on your one reason with a personal story. So in today's class, you'll see templates for both. You'll see a template for question 1 when you only have one supporting reason with a personal story, or 2 reasons and some brief examples. If you happen to come up with 2 reasons, you won't have time for a personal story. So that's why you kind of have 2 options here. So here's your template. This template is several pages or several slides. So screenshot this so you can practice this. This is your template for question number 1. So the first thing you're going to do is answer the question directly. Okay, so just be right to the point. You don't need to waste any time kind of introducing your response. Just get right to the point and answer the question directly. So use whatever keyword you see in the question. So if the question asks you, do you agree or disagree with ... You're going to start out your answer with, I agree with, or I agree that ... or I disagree. So you don't have to worry about a response being the best one or the correct one or the one that you think the raters want to hear. None of that matters. What matters is how well you can speak for 45 seconds on your opinion and support it. The raters don't care which direction you go, agree or disagree, you like it or you don't like it. So whatever you come up with, go with it. And just that will be your response. So next, you'll come up with 1 or 2 reasons to support your answer. 1 or 2. So if you only came up with 1 reason, that's fine. Now you're going to use a personal story to support it. If you can't think of a story, just make one up. The rater won't know the difference. So the next thing you'll do, so to screenshot this as well. Once you've come up with your 1 or 2 reasons, you're going to state your first reason, and just very directly, you're going to introduce it with words like first, or first of all, or for instance, or for example. These words are important because they signal to the rater that you're transitioning seamlessly into your next thought. You're connecting thoughts together, and that is part of your overall score, is your topic development score, is how well do you connect your ideas together in your responses. And every question is scored the same. It has the same categories that the rater and the AI are listening for. And topic development means how well are you connecting ideas and explaining your ideas. So that's what these templates are built to help you with. So you need to introduce your first reason with words like first of all, for instance. Pick one and practice with that and just kind of use that one word, that one phrase if you want. Now, if this is the only reason you could think of, next, you will elaborate by telling a brief personal story that supports your reason or illustrates why you believe it. And again, if it's fake, that's okay. Just make it up. The raters won't know the difference. But it's best if you can come up with a personal experience because it'll be easier for you to talk about. But again, don't worry if you're making it up. And this personal story can be done in 3 to 4 sentences. So in my experience, that's the hardest part when people are trying for this personal story, when they're practicing, is they make the story too long. It's challenging to condense everything into 3 or 4 sentences. So if this is you, if you feel like you're telling your story in like 5, 6, 7 sentences, you're probably going to run out of time. So practice that story, look at it, and practice it more and more and see what you can trim out, right? You're going to try to summarize it in 3 to 4 sentences using the template that I'll show you on the next slide. And then practice with other personal stories. Can you come up with another one that you can tell in 4 sentences following the template? So today, if this is your first time practicing question 1 using this template, you're probably going to go over. You're probably going to have too many details in your personal story. That's okay. Just keep practicing it and trim it down. So here's the template for your personal story for question 1 to support one reason. Sentence 1, you're going to give the background or the setting, and then the experience or what happened to you or what you did. Okay, so where were you and when did this happen and what happened? Then sentences 2 to 3, you're going to describe how that experience made you feel or how it affected you then, because you're talking about a story that happened in the past, right? So this is a learning experience that usually starts off as negative. That's typically what learning experiences do. Something negative happened, and you felt, I don't know, some kind of like negative emotion. And you were, something kind of challenging has happened. But then in sentence 4, you're going to describe how that experience is impacting your current situation. So what did you learn from it? How are things now? And that's typically a positive outcome. So this is usually what happens when people learn something from a past experience. So something bad, you were here, this is what was going on, this is how I felt, but now I feel great. I learned from this. So this is a very easy template to follow when telling stories in a short, succinct way. And it typically, the learning experience, the positive outcome is going to relate back to whatever your opinion is. That's why you believe the thing that you believe. That's why you agree with whatever the statement is, or you disagree with it, because this learning experience will support whatever direction you go with. All right, so here's another slide for you to screenshot, continuing with the template for question 1. So now, if you use the personal story, you have one reason and the personal story, that's it. You don't need to summarize anything. You just end. Just end your response with that final sentence number 4 of the personal story. Now, if you've come up with 2 reasons, skip the personal story and then do this. Okay, so state your first reason and introduce it first. First of all, for instance, and then elaborate with a brief example, one sentence. Now, again, this is where people tend to have difficulty is being concise. Remember, you just have 45 seconds for this question. So you want to just give a one sentence brief example that elaborates on your reason, that supports it. So while you're practicing, if you find like you are spending a lot of time here on reason number one, you have two reasons, but you're spending, of those 45 seconds, you're spending 30 seconds on your first reason, maybe 35 seconds because you're elaborating on it with 5 sentences, 6 sentences. Trim it down, only one sentence, because you want to give equal time to your second reason. So then you'll state your second reason and then introduce it using words like second, secondly, in addition, I also think that. Okay, so again, these words are important. They indicate to the reader and the AI that you are transitioning into your next thought and you're connecting your thoughts together. And then you elaborate on your second reason with a brief example. Again, try for one sentence. Now, if you can get just one sentence you've elaborated briefly with one sentence, but when you're practicing, you end at 40 seconds or something and you have 5 seconds left or 35 seconds. Maybe if you have 10 seconds left, okay, then you can go back, practice your response again, time yourself, and then see, maybe you have time to add an extra little something. But for most of you, that's not going to be the case. You'll probably go over time. That's been my experience, but it all depends. Okay, so here is your practice question for question number 1. So what I'm going to do is pop out a full screen so I can show you the timer. I want to make sure that everyone can see the timer. Let me pull it over. There we go. And let's get the timer correct. So you have 15 seconds to prepare. So what will happen on the TOEFL, you'll hear someone read this to you, and then your 15 seconds will begin. And then you will right away pop into your 45 seconds to speak. Okay? So that's what we'll practice now. So everybody get your notes ready. You've now been able to see this question for longer than what you normally would. That's okay. We'll practice with one more question today on question number 1. But again, this is the one where you just give your opinion and whatever you come up with, go with it. One reason with personal story or 2 reasons with your brief example, one sentence to support each reason. All right, so here is question 1. I will read it to you, and then you'll have 15 seconds to take notes and organize your thoughts. Some people believe that working from home is more productive than working in an office. Do you agree or disagree with this statement? Use specific reasons and examples to support your answer. Okay, 15 seconds now. All right, stop reading and now begin talking. All right, stop speaking. So now you have an idea of how quickly this goes. If you were able to do your one reason personal story or two reasons within the time allotted. Is there anybody who wants to review their response with me? And I can give you some brief feedback to make sure that I'm going to be brief today to make sure that we can get through every question. Okay, so we have a volunteer, Himal. I apologize if I have mispronounced your name. Please correct me. Himal, is that correct?
It's correct.
Oh, okay. Let me turn up the volume. Can you speak a little bit louder or turn up your microphone for me?
Am I audible now?
Okay, I can hear you. It's a little low on my end, but that's okay. I will try to pay attention, and I can't turn up my volume anymore. So no worries, but I will pay attention. Okay, are you ready to give your response?
I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead and begin.
I totally disagree with this statement that working from home is more productive than working in an office due to the following two reasons. Firstly, I would like to state that household chores distract us and distract our productivity. For example, we have to engage ourselves in washing dishes, cooking, and cleaning the room, which takes most of our time. Secondly, working on home, we have to deal with people, we have to participate in conversations with our family members, and those conversations kills most of the productive time when working at home.
Okay, great. Just letting
Thank
the
you, Mr.
timer run out.
Yes.
All right, so nice job there. So you had your two reasons with brief examples, and you finished with about 6 seconds left. So nice job. So you hit all the things you were supposed to hit. I believe your very first sentence, you said, I totally disagree with dot, dot, dot. And then, so you answered that. You either agreed or disagreed. And then you had nice transitions, firstly, and then you also said secondly, which was great. And then for example. So you use these very nice transition phrases there. So I liked that. One thing to think about, I did hear one grammatical error where an article was missing from your speech. So an article is the words a or an or the, like the room, a car, something like that. So those are really tricky to catch when you're actually speaking. So this kind of goes for everybody. The AI that is scoring you is really good at listening for that particular thing, grammatical mistakes or omissions. Maybe if you forget to use the third person singular, like adding an S when you're conjugating verbs to the third person, things like that. So the phrase I heard, something cleaning room. And I think an article, if I remember right, an article cleaning a room or cleaning the room or cleaning rooms. Something should have been in that phrase to make it more grammatically correct. So that one just stood out. So to know if you're making that mistake in the future when you're practicing, you're going to record yourself when you're practicing on your phone. Just and find some free app that does a text to speech conversion, or you can record yourself and listen to it and type out every word you say. And then you can feed it into like a website, grammarly.com or something that checks for grammar if you're not quite sure. Or, a Google Doc. Maybe it'll hype or underline if it notices a grammar place, and then practice that same response again with the grammar correction. So that's just one thing to look for because grammatical mistakes do tend to stand out more to the ears of a person and to the AI. So that was just one thing I heard that I could take a note on. But I liked the structure of your response. I thought it was great. You did have some extra time there. So I think practice that again and see if maybe you can smooth out your connections. I think you spoke at a normal rate, but you maybe could even speak a little slower and just make it more conversational. That might fill up a couple more seconds there without you having to think about, oh no, like, do I need to say more? But you can also practice that same response and add just an extra little something into one of those reasons, and just to see, oh, does that fill up the time? But nice job there. I thought that was a really good response. Do you have any
How
questions
would
for
you
me I
rate
can
it?
answer?
Yeah, how would you rate it in terms of TOEFL rubrics?
Yeah, let me look at the rubric here. I have it available to me. Let me find it.
I was wondering to ask you another question as well, if it's possible.
So, yeah, so I would say this would probably score pretty high for question one. I would say maybe a 3.5 is what I would, just for some minor errors, minor effort for me to understand you, just minor things is kind of the key word there. So, somewhere between a 3 and a 4 is probably what I would say.
Okay.
And what's your second question?
Yeah, I would like to ask you about you said that you could rate that we can rate our speech using an online website or something rating website, right? So I was thinking if I could rate from Elsa and how um, productive it would be. Is it correct or not?
If you could rate it on what website? I'm sorry, say that again.
Elsa,
Oh, Elsa. Okay,
EL.
got it. I don't know how accurate that is. You can use it. It's definitely not going to hurt you to use it, but I don't know. I've had some variable success with that in terms of how accurate it is. As a native speaker of American English, sometimes it'll still mistranscribe what I say, but use it. Use it and see if it starts to transcribe, if you're practicing with it, and the thing is, it might have difficulty when you're kind of linking words together, and that's where it might mistranscribe you, because when you're linking words together in conversation, that's when some sounds get dropped from the pronunciation at times, and I don't know how accurate Elsa is at understanding that, so it might mistranscribe you. So yeah, use it and just see, but don't say, oh, Elsa says I'm 100%. I mean, that's helpful. But if it says you're also really low and you're looking at that, you're like, well, I didn't say that. That has happened to me too. So it's hard to say.
Okay, that was helpful. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so thank you so much, Himal. And in the interest of time, we're going to move on to question number 2. So I apologize, we won't have time to do two question ones, but let's move on to question 2 now. All right. Back to full screen mode. So questions 2 and 3 are the harder questions, I think the hardest ones on the speaking TOEFL, because you're going to have a reading passage, a listening portion, and then you speak. So this is where your note-taking ability is going to be really, really important, okay? You're going to take notes on both things, the reading and the listening. The reading involves a passage about a campus-related topic for question 2, about 100 words. It's going to involve a change on a university campus or a proposed change that the author thinks should happen. And the author will state 2 reasons. And you have 45 seconds to read the article and take notes because you won't see it again. Then you're going to listen to 2 students discussing the topic proposed in the article, and a student will state his or her opinion. They'll agree with it, they'll disagree with it, or very rarely they'll have a mixed opinion, which means they agree and disagree. They can see both sides. And they'll give 2 reasons, and then lots of examples supporting those reasons. And then you'll want to take notes on this because, again, you won't hear this again, and you won't see the transcript. Then you'll be asked to summarize what you read in the article and summarize the student's opinion and reasons and how they relate to the article. And you only get 30 seconds to prepare and 60 seconds to speak. So you'll be taking furious notes as you're reading, and even more quickly as you're listening. You're just going to be writing down as many examples as you can. You will not be able to write down everything you hear. That's impossible. But get their 2 reasons and get as many supporting examples as you can, and then just move on. Okay. So here's how you're going to divide everything up. 60 seconds to respond, about 15 seconds you'll summarize the reading, and about 45 seconds on the conversation. So actually time yourself when you're practicing, and even time yourself just doing the summary of the reading. Can you get that in 15 seconds? Okay, now practice it again. Make sure you're good at 15 seconds. All right, and now do just the conversation and time yourself. Can you summarize that in 45 seconds? Make sure you can, and then do the full response, and then make sure you're hitting those marks. Okay, and again, make sure you summarize the speaker's opinions in your answer, not your own. So you'll have to mention both the article and the conversation's reasons in your response. That's part of what the question is asking you to do. Okay, so that's also just very basic. Are you answering the question? That's one thing that you're rated on. So make sure that you mention both in your response. So very briefly, here are some symbols that I have used when I was taking notes and practicing here. So I have my notes in landscape orientation and divided in half. And one side I've taken notes for the reading, and the other side I've taken notes for the listening. Any of these symbols will work. You can take a quick screenshot of this if you want to use my symbols, and I've told you here what they all mean. And just here's an example of what my notes have looked like. Parking on the right, I say reading. On the left, I say conversation. Here's 1 reason, 2 reasons that I got from the reading, and then directly relates to 1 reason, 2 reason that I heard in the conversation. And this plus means the speaker agreed with it. Someone is asking for the previous slide. I don't know if it's this one. I don't know what number. Slide 14. Here's slide 14. So take your screenshot right now. You got this. Okay, here we go. So screenshot this one. Here's your template for question 2. First, you'll summarize the main point from the reading and the 2 reasons for the change. About 12 to 15 seconds here. The article or the letter states that, and then you have the change that it's proposing in order to, and here are the 2 reasons, reason 1 and reason 2. You know, there's a couple of ways you can say this. Try to say it in about 1 sentence. Then you will transition to what the students are saying, their opinion in 1 sentence. The man, the woman, the student agrees, disagrees, has mixed feelings about this change for 2 reasons. Because remember, they're going to give 2 reasons here. Then summarize the student's first reason in about 20 seconds. So you'll see these are very specific times here because you want to make sure you're getting all the points, you know, all the things that the question is asking you to respond with. So when you're practicing, I would recommend breaking up your practice into these specific sections. Try to just summarize the main point and the 2 reasons in 12-ish seconds. Then can you state the student's opinion in 2 seconds? Then can you summarize their first reason in about 20 seconds? And you'll use transitional phrases again, or introductory phrases. First, the man, the woman, the student says that. His first reason is, to begin with, she states. Any of those are fine. And then you're going to use these transition phrases again. Additionally, secondly, his or her second reason is, etc. And then state their second reason in about 20-ish seconds. So this question is hard. Questions 2 and 3 are the hardest, according to my opinion. So if you find like, oh, this is really challenging, that's okay. You'll get better at it as you practice. But really hit these timers. What tends to happen is a student, will spend too long on summarizing question 1. And then by the time they get to question 2, they've got, 10 seconds left and they run out of time. That's usually what happens. Okay, so let's do this reading passage here. So here's your practice. We're going to practice with reading passage, what I have called reading passage number 1. So let's make sure I got the right timers here. You're going to have 45 seconds to read this and take your notes. So get your notes ready. And 45 seconds on the clock starts now. All right, let's move on. And then you'll hear a voice say, next you'll hear a conversation between 2 students discussing this topic. So here is the listening portion.
Did you hear the university is raising parking fees to reduce campus traffic?
Yeah, I did. Honestly, I think it's a great idea.
Really? Why do you say that?
Well, first off, it might actually push more students to carpool or use the bus instead of each driving their own cars. I mean, think about how congested campus gets during peak hours. It's almost impossible to find parking, and raising fees could make people reconsider. Plus, public transit would cut down on emissions, which helps with air quality around campus.
True. But wouldn't it be tough for people who have to drive?
Yeah, it might be inconvenient for some, but there's an upside. The university plans to use the extra money to improve campus facilities, like adding more bike racks and funding additional shuttle routes. So, students who still need to commute have more convenient options. And with more bike racks, cycling becomes a viable option too. I think it could make our campus a lot more eco-friendly overall.
I hadn't thought of that before. But I see your point, and you've convinced me.
All right. Then you'll see the question. It says, the man gives his opinion on the university's decision to raise parking fees to reduce campus traffic. Describe his opinion and the reasons he provides to support it. So you will have 30 seconds to prepare. Begins now. All right, and then you have 60 seconds to speak. Start now. Okay, stop speaking. Okay, so now you got a feel for how quickly that goes. And were you able to summarize the reading briefly? Were you able to then spend the bulk of your time on the student's opinions? He gave 2 reasons and to support his opinion, and then whatever examples you can use to support those his opinions within that 20-second time allotment. So is there anybody who wants to review their response with me? And I can give you as brief as feedback as I can, because we've only got 19 minutes left. Go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, I don't see any volunteers. That's okay. This one is a little harder, so you're going to get more practice with this exact type of question in question number 3, which we will go ahead and move on to right now since there are no volunteers. Okay, here we go. Let's move on to question number 3. All right, so this question 3 is the same type of question, integrated speaking, meaning it's all of your English skills wrapped up in one question. Yeah, I kind of laugh because this is the speaking portion of the TOEFL, but I have found that my writing was much more important here because I had to take notes and notes and notes to make sure I was answering everything correctly. But the difference here with question 3 is instead of the question or the topic being about a campus-related topic, now you're going to listen to a lecture. So the same thing, you're going to do a first C reading. You're going to read a passage about an academic-related topic, about 100 words. The topic will be about a specific term or concept that can be found in a first-year college textbook. You're going to get the definition and some basic details, 45 seconds to read the article, and then remember, take notes because you won't see the reading again. Then you'll listen to a short lecture about the same topic. You'll hear details of examples of the term or concept, 1 or 2 examples, about 1 to 2 minutes of talking, and you'll want to take notes here. So the professor is going to give lots of examples here. The 2 reasons, or 2 examples, but then they're going to support that with lots of things. You might also hear some students kind of interrupting or asking questions in the lecture, just like what a lecture might sound like in an actual university setting. Write down as many as you can, right? You're going to get at least there are 2 examples, but whatever supporting details that professor provides you, write down what you can, but you won't be able to write everything. Right, and that's okay. Just as long as you get their 2 examples, and then supporting at least with supporting each example with at least 1 supporting detail. And you'll have to kind of see, how much of that 60 seconds are you spending. If you're able to do their first example in like 10 seconds out of that 20 that you're allotted, listen to it again and see, can you bulk that up with some more details? So then you'll be asked to summarize what you read in the article and what you heard in the lecture and discuss how the lecture examples support or illustrate the concept or topic. 30 seconds to prepare, 60 seconds to speak. So here's what you're going to take notes on. The first 2 are the most important. From the reading, the title. You're going to see that at the very top, and that's going to give you the topic or concept, so you're going to write that down. And then the definition. Early in the reading, you'll get the definition of what that topic is. And then 2 to 3 main details. Write what you can, okay? You're going to spend most of your response on the lecture. So the first 2 are the most important, the title and definition, but you're still going to want to take notes on the details to prepare you, to prime your brain for what it's about to listen to, right? Because the professor is probably going to mention some of these same details in their lecture. So if you're taking notes on it, that will help you to remember it and be like, oh, I recognize that. Then write as many specific examples as you can from the lecture and label them number 1, number 2, so you know this is the first example, the second example, and then fill in any missing details as soon as the lecture is over. So you have 30 seconds to prepare your answer. It will go fast. It'll go by fast. Again, don't worry about getting every single detail. You won't have time. Just fill in any gaps in the examples that you have immediately after the lecture is over with those 30 seconds. Here's what my notes look like. Again, on the left is reading, on the right is the lecture. I got the title, I got some the definition, and then some examples here, and then the lecture 1, 2, and then that's what I heard from the lecture. And then you'll see in the next slide, these highlighted things are words or concepts that came into my mind during those 30 seconds. And, I don't know if this is going to be something valuable that the AI is listening for or the rater, but hey, if it was extra example or an extra supporting detail, that's great. Yellowstone, I just remembered that. That's the name of the national park that the gray wolf is found in. And then I thought, other species, beavers. One of those other species, I remembered, it was beavers and something else. So another supporting detail here. Here's your template for question 3. So take notes on this, but also screenshot this. You're going to state the term or concept from the reading. Again, you'll get this from the title, and state its definition. So 2 sentences, 15 seconds max. The reading is about. The reading discusses. The reading focuses on. That's how you'll begin this question. This is defined as, this means, this refers to, which is defined as. You'll use this one if you want to combine these 2 things into one sentence. That's how you can use this phrase. And that might be nice too, because this is kind of a more complex sentence. That might bump up your score a little bit. It's whatever feels most comfortable. Don't force it. It's better to answer the question rather than to try to force these kind of big words or these complex sentences if it's not part of your normal speech. It might be too distracting or too hard. Just make sure you're answering the question. Then you'll transition to the lecture in one sentence. The professor expands on this. The professor discusses this in greater depth, explains this further. The professor adds more context. Something like this to transition. So that's also what the AI and the human rater are listening for. Are you connecting your thoughts together? Are you transitioning in a clear and predictable way? Then state the first example in about 20 seconds. First, he says that to begin with, she states, any of these will do, and then you state the example. And if you have more time in that 20 seconds, add a supporting detail. State the second example, if there were 2, and there probably will be, in about 20 seconds. Second, he states that she continues by saying that the second example, and then a supporting or detail or 2, depending on how much time you have. So this is a very big response, lots of things to cover here. But again, when you're practicing, practice each section on its own and time yourself, and then try the full 60 seconds and see if you can still hit those timers. Okay, everyone got this template? Now we practice. So we're going to practice with what I've titled passage number 1. And I probably won't be able to give feedback. I want to make sure I can get question 4 in for today's class. So I apologize if I'm not able to give feedback on your response today due to time. So let's make sure I have my timers right. You've got 45 seconds to read this and take your notes. Okay, 45 seconds begins now. All right, so now let's move on to the next. Let me find it here. Oops. Okay, then you'll hear a voice say, now you'll listen to a lecture where the professor expands on this topic. So get ready to take notes. Here is the listening.
Today, we'll talk about keystone species and their impact on ecosystems. One classic example is the sea otter. Sea otters feed on sea urchins, keeping their populations in check. This is crucial because unchecked sea urchins can overgraze and destroy kelp forests, which are essential habitats for fish and other marine organisms. The disappearance of kelp leads to a chain reaction, impacting the entire ecosystem's balance. Another example is the gray wolf in Yellowstone National Park. When wolves were reintroduced, they helped control deer and elk populations that had been overgrazing vegetation. This allowed trees and plants to recover, which stabilized riverbanks and attracted other wildlife, such as beavers and birds. The presence of wolves showed how a keystone species can regulate other species and enhance biodiversity. These examples highlight the critical role keystone species play in maintaining the health and stability of their ecosystems.
All right. So now you will have 30 seconds to prepare your response. 30 seconds begins. Oh, sorry, let me give you the question. Explain what a keystone species is and how the examples given by the professor illustrate this concept. You have 30 seconds to prepare, starting now. All right, and now 60 seconds to speak, starting now. Oops. All right, stop speaking. So again, I won't have time to give feedback on this one. I apologize because I want to make sure that we get to question 4. But you can see how quickly that goes by. Yeah, you'll have to kind of look back at your answer and see, did you hit all those timers? Did you summarize the reading and the lecture? Yeah, so take a look at that. So let's jump in. We have 5 minutes left. Yes, someone has asked, can you show the question 1 template again? I'll do that at the very end. So here is question 4. It's another integrated speaking question where you're going to listen to a lecture. It's a little easier though, I think, because there's no reading. You're listening to a part of a lecture on a single topic. The professor will define the concept or highlight an issue. They'll give 2 examples that help explain or clarify the issue. 1 to 2 minutes of talking. Take notes. Again, you won't hear it again and you won't see the transcript. And then the speaking part is a little bit more straightforward. It's just a summary. Summarize what you heard in the lecture. So explain the main concept or issue using examples from the lecture. 20 seconds to prepare, so you get less time to prepare here, same amount of time to speak. So basic tips, and this kind of goes for every question. Don't speak too quickly. Speak normally. Think about conversation. You want to just have a normal conversation with somebody. That's what you're aiming for. And when you respond, you're going to divide up your 60-second response time into this type of a format. So 10 seconds on the subject of the lecture, 25 seconds on the first example and details, and then about 25 seconds on the second example and details. Now, you won't be able to write down all of the details, right? The professor's going to give lots, and you might have some students kind of interrupting the professor and asking clarification questions, just like you would hear in a normal university lecture. But just write down as much as you can and see what you can get within those 25-second time allotments. So you'll take notes on the subject, topic, or concept discussed in the lecture. This will be stated at the beginning. And then the two specific examples that the speaker discusses, label them number 1 and number 2, and then as many details as you can for each example, the more the better. But you won't have time to get all of them. Just do your best. Once you have that 20 seconds to prepare, to fill in any gaps in the examples. Another word or another example might pop into your head. That would be great. Quickly write that down if you can. Here's what my notes looked like. You see I have the concept and then the definition, and then example 1, example 2. Here's my example, and then I wrote down as many things as I could as I heard. You'll see all my abbreviations here, my symbols that I've used, that I've cultivated over the years. This is what makes sense to me. Feel free to use those symbols as well that I showed you in a prior slide. The orange highlighted stuff, these are things that popped into my head in the 20 seconds that maybe was helpful or helped to just, I looked at that DIX and I thought, oh, what is that? Oh, dioxide. That's what that is. Here, different wave, that's as far as I got. And I was like, what does that mean? It was a wavelength of light, not a wave in an ocean, right? A different type of wave. So I wanted to clarify that for myself in case that's what I happened to say. So screenshot this. Here's your template for question 4. You're going to state the subject or topic of the lecture in about 10 seconds. The lecturer, the professor, the speaker discusses 2, which include, okay, so that's what you're going to discuss first. Then state the first example from the lecture and supporting details in about 25 seconds. So again, you're going to see these same transitional phrases. This is what will bump up your topic development score. You need to introduce these examples in a clear way that makes sense, and this is how you do it. Okay, the first example given by the professor is, she starts out by illustrating how, okay, and then transition to the second example and use about 25 seconds here. Second, she explains how. Lastly, she outlines how. She concludes by illustrating how. Any of those are fine. And then when you're done with this last example and as many supporting details as you can come up with, that's the end of your answer. You don't need to summarize anything or have a conclusion. Okay, everyone got this screenshot? So now let's practice very quickly. We don't have time to practice this one. All right, but at least you got the template for question 4. Okay, so I apologize, we don't have time. Someone has asked for the template for question 1. Let me bounce back to that and find it here. So question 1 has several slides. So here's the first slide. So please screenshot this one. I'll just give you a couple seconds here. All right, here's your next slide to screenshot. Okay, and your next slide to screenshot. And your next slide to screenshot. And I believe that's the end of it. Yep, it is. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining me today. I'm so sorry I didn't have time to practice with question 4, but I hope the template will be helpful for you as you practice on your own. Good luck with your practice this week. Join me next week at the same time for TOEFL listening. That's what I hope to cover next week. And yeah, we'll just continue with this TOEFL test and eventually start incorporating the reading practice and writing practice as well. All right, good luck, everybody. Oh, thank you. Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad you guys liked the class. Thank you for the thank yous. Okay, everybody, have a great rest of your day. And if you are interested in GRE help, stick around in about 30 minutes. Vince will have his GRE class as well. Okay, everybody, have a great day, and I'll see you next week. Okay, bye, everybody.